Greetings from chess.com. Welcome to round 5 highlights of the Tata Steel event. This was an epic round. The broadcast also had Vishwanath Anand come in and give his impressions about the tournament. So it was lovely. I had great fun watching the broadcast. So let's check in with Indian superstar Harikrishna's game. He was paired against Anish Giri and he employed the Queen's Gambit accepted, which is quite rare if you look at his games. He has won a nice game against David Navara in Prague Open in February 2020. So he's playing this in a classical event after a long time, and he got a very decent position. Most of his opponents had played e4 and he had responded with knight f6. So in this game he played e5 and they reached a very complicated position. Interesting to note that after b4, this position had come in the game of Indian International Master Nilas Saha. So here Nilas also had played b4 and his opponent went with knight g6, and after bishop b2 his opponent went bishop h3. That was their game, but in the game of Anish and Harikrishna went with bishop g4 first, and after bishop b2 he went with bishop f4. I'm not sure if this was part of his preparation, but they reached a very interesting game, and after a point Anish sacrificed a pawn with b5 and then he got e5 pawn. Harikrishna got his e5 pawn, and then instead of rook at d1, Anish shared in the interview that he should have played knight d2. He saw this after he played rook at d1. The point is not to attack this pawn on d3, but to play around it, to probably play double on the e line, play h3, play king h2, play some static moves, and then eventually outplay the opponent. So that was a better plan. But after rook a d1, rook d8, he had already started sensing that the position was drifting. So in this position, after knight c4, he decided to offer a draw to his opponent, which Harikrishna accepted. The position is full of life and both sides can play. A sample variation could be knight a3 and then bishop a5, knight c2. Here you are actually sacrificing the exchange because black has a lot of play based on this d3 pawn. A sample variation could be bishop b6 and then rook e8, bishop e8, and then something like this. They could reach this position, but it's not so easy to play this because black has threats, white has material, but eventually it's all move by move. So white has to defend some threats, and if he manages to parry them all, then he will stand better. It would have been very interesting to see how the game would have progressed, but they agreed to a draw in this position after knight d2. So that was Harikrishna's game. Let's move on to the next one. Next game is the game which I cover as a tactical shot. This is a game between Nils Grandelius, who is now the sole leader of the tournament with 3.5 points, and his game against MVL. MVL, we know that he plays Naidov and Grunfeld. Those are his two main weapons with the black side, and he played the same here as well. And it's a poison pawn variation, and I was watching the commentary, and Daniel Lawrensky mentions how that he has played Naidov but has never ventured into this territory of poison pawns. And it's a game of memory. Both sides will play their respective preparation, but it's about who eventually retains that notes in their memory. That's what I feel about Naidov. But in this game, after queen c5 check, I was also thinking about bishop e3, and he played bishop e3. And then here I was considering queen c7, but there's a problem with queen c7. There's knight d5 threat, and then if you take, then there is no hope for black to castle so easily. And let's say if the queen moves to d7, there's knight b6, and if let's say you move the queen to d8, there is b7 hanging. So then I thought, okay, then maybe queen c6 would have been the best move. But then after queen c6 also there is knight d5 preventing the black from castling. So eventually MVL played queen c4, and the time he took, considering that, I felt that it was still a part of his preparation. And here I was expecting Nils to go knight d5, but he went rook f4. And here there have been some correspondence games where black went knight h5 and after rook f2, knight f6, there is a possibility to repeat. So I'm very curious to see what Nils had in mind in case of knight h5. But here MVL played, instead of knight h5, he simply played queen to e6, giving up the pawn on b7. And after rook b7 castles, Nils Grandelius makes use of a lot of static moves to improve his position. And he improves it to such an extent that the position becomes overwhelmingly powerful, as you can see. It's very clever of him to exchange the rooks on a8, not on b8, because on b8 you get an open file, but on a8, the pawn on a6 is blocking the range of the rook. And now he plays knight d5, and there might be a possibility of a check very soon. So before moving his king to h2, he further strengthens the knight on d5 and then plays queen f2, bishop d4, rook f5 and king h2. So now with these moves, with these mini improvements, white has managed to put all his pieces to their best squares. And it's not just that, he keeps on improving until he finds a tactical opportunity. He plays rook c8, opponent plays rook c8, queen g3, g6, and now is a good moment to find that tactical shot. What would you do as white? It's not a tactical shot literally, but yeah, it's a forcing move. And forcing moves are moves which are checks, captures, threats or pawn breaks. So take a moment to see what you would do as white. Kudos if you have found queen h4, that is the best move. It's not so easy to find this move, but if you feel that your position is good, then I think you should start looking for forcing moves like these, and eventually you will reach queen h4. So after queen h4, if you, let's say, if you play a move like bishop g7, the problem is white has queen e7, and this queen on e6 feels very unsafe. If you play a move like rook e8, there is a mate here, so it's like there are two threats. One is queen e6, one is queen g7. If you take queen e7, there is knight e7 followed by knight c8, and d6 is also following. And yeah, there is no way for black. So after queen h4, gf5, let's say if black plays gf5, there is simply ef5. You can't take the pawn because of knight e7. If you play queen f7, there is knight e7 check. So in the game, his opponent played bishop to f8 after queen h4, and now he continues his attack with another powerful move, rook f6. And again, knight f6 is not possible because of knight f6 followed by knight g4. This is a deadly pin which decides the game in white's favor. And after queen e8, he simply plays rook takes f8. It's destroying the opponent's defender. And if knight f8, there is knight f6 or knight e7. And if queen f8, there is knight e6 check followed by queen h7. And also knight c8 also wins. So that's what happened in the game, and MVL resigned here. There is queen h7 coming. I really like the game, especially the way in which white played from here onwards. After he picks the pawn, he plays h3, improves his knight to d5, plays pawn to c4, king to h2, bishop to d4, queen to f2. I think we can all learn a lot from this game. The steady improvements and how the static moves build the position, and then also how he found that idea to play queen h4, knight e7, rook f6 tricks. I think this also comes by experience, but if you also want to improve in this aspect, I would suggest that you solve a lot of combinations on this topic. So that was my tactical shot of Nils Grandelius. Let's move on to another one. This is a missed opportunity, a case of a missed opportunity. So here David Anton was white and Arvind Thari was black. Throughout the game, black was defending, and Anton had managed to get a very good position. In this position, for example, he could have simply played something like king f2 and he was better, but he went with rook b5 and they reached a very interesting position. a3 happened. b3 is forced, of course, because ab2 is coming. If you play a move like rook e2, there was c5, c4, c3 coming, so no chance. So b3, b2. Now this is a very interesting endgame, and black would be hoping to stall these three pawns, and white would be hoping to maybe give up this pawn for this one through some exchange, and then rely on some tactical idea with these three pawns, but it's objectively quite equal. But interestingly, they reach a situation where you will know what I mean. So in this position, after bishop a4, king e3, c4, king f4, uh, instead of king f4, if you play king d2, king e2, king d4, it's all a draw. But king f4, there is c3, and then if you play, let's say, king to e3, there is a nice move that puts white in zugzwang, and that is bishop to b5. So this is an important move to spot. If you don't spot it, then there is no win. The point is that this king is restricted, it cannot stop the pawn, and eventually the king will have to leave control of these two squares, and then c2 will come. For example, if you play move like a4, don't take the pawn, just play bishop a6. And you're in zugzwang. The king cannot move anywhere because of c2, and if the pawn moves, there is always zugzwang. If this pawn moves here, take the pawn. If this pawn moves here, this king g5. So it's all zugzwang, but this did not happen. Aryan Thari missed his chance, and he just played c2, and the game was a draw. So that was a missed opportunity for Aryan Thari. Then let's come to some game-changing moments. I would call them slightly critical. So in this game, Caruana was white and Esipenko Andre was black. I really like this move g5, but I even like the way in which white responded. Of course, this was all home cooked. It may seem as if the knight is trapped, but white plays a very nice move. White plays d4, attacking the pawn on g5. So if black takes the knight, there is bishop g5 pin, and in the game h6 happened, and then after knight e3, you see again the knight is hanging, and if the knight is taken, you feel there is no immediate threat, but then the bishop gets trapped with a3 and b4. This was the funny part I wanted to show about this game. And yeah, the game ended in a draw. After that, Esipenko defended well. Corona was better prepared, but he was able to diffuse all the threats, and eventually the game ended in a draw. Another game I want to touch upon is the game between Magnus Carlsen and Donchenko. Kudos to Donchenko for really defending this endgame well. A critical position is after e5, e5. Here Magnus Carlsen played a6, and you see this all began here where Donchenko played a5. So when Donchenko played a5, I have a feeling he has seen this until the very end, and this is the start of a very long continuation. a5, pawn takes check, and then attacking the pawn. Now to support this pawn, the knight has to come back, and then now this pawn is attacked again, so e5, e5, a6 has to be played. You see all the moves are forced, and after rook a5, there is rook a5, rook a5, and here is a nice opportunity. What would you do as white? Yeah, Magnus Carlsen plays c4. All this is looked beforehand, I feel, in the moment where a5 happened. And the point is, if black takes this pawn, there is rook a3, and white suddenly wins. There is no way you can stop this. For example, if you play bishop e3 here, there is simply knight c4, or even knight b5. I think this pawn promotes. So rook a6 happened, cd5, and you see even in such situation, Magnus was able to pose some threats. Eventually, Donchenko played precisely and held the game. Now this pawn looks dangerous because you see it's all well calculated. He takes the pawn and realizes that he can sack the rook again, and in this position he takes, and then after rook a3 there is a mate threatened. He plays rook c8, deliberately giving the rook, and then this position is a draw. So that was a nice end to this game, but I must appreciate the will to play. Magnus Carlsen is known for playing until the end. I think you also should develop this, so that in this game Donchenko played really well, but not every time. You will always find your chances if you have this will to keep playing until the very end. Now let's have a quick look at the tournament leaders. These are the results. of the round 5, and let me get the standings. Nils Grandelius is on top, and yeah, Indian superstar Harikrishna is also there in the second position. It's a tie from second to fifth place, and these are the pairings for round 6. And Indian superstar Harikrishna plays Wojtasek. Wojtasek was also a part of Anand's team in the World Championship matches. And Nils plays Kurbanov. It's going to be a very interesting match. It's going to start at 6:30 p.m. today. And watch the broadcast on chess.com/TV. What are some of the things you could learn from the games that I showed? I think it's worth studying tactical examples featuring weak castle king position. One good book for this is Mating the Castle King by Daniel Gormali, I think. And you can also study Anthology of Chess Combinations. There's a dedicated chapter for weakened king's position, so that you are more acquainted with the patterns, and when the situation arises, you can deliver. And the Zugzwang, you know how Bishop b5 would have won the game for Aryan Thari. I think that was a Zugzwang opportunity missed. So it's a good idea to study more examples of Zugzwang to know its characteristics, so that you can sense it when you have the chance. And of course, the tip from Magnus Carlsen is to keep on playing until the very end, and how you can get opportunities, or you can create opportunities even in the simplest of positions, like I showed a6 and c4 in Magnus Carlsen's game. I think it's a good idea to take inspiration from him and keep on playing until the end, instead of taking draws, because that way you also learn a lot of end games, and he's known for playing a lot of end games. So be like Magnus. And I think with that, I'm going to take leave here. I'll be back with another video soon. I hope you like the video, and I'll be back. Until then, take care. Bye bye.